Okay, I hope we all had a good lunch break. So we are here to resume the discussion, and we will hear 4 presenters today. Then tell us about region policy and regional policy and the use of crisis. So we have 4 speakers. The first one will be Valeria Sonzolo, represent. I think it's your PhD thesis, right? I give you the first time in public, but also look forward to it. And it's about completely COVID-19 crisis and evidence-based implementation of next generation youth. There will be other 3 speakers. So after Julia, I will introduce intervention as well. And there will be Mario Piernide from Laboratory of Sweden, who will be presenting online, I think. Right? Okay. We talk about smart strategic strategy in impact of COVID crisis. And then it will be Ricardo Crescenti, with Professor of Economic Geography at the London School of Economics. We present the impact of regional policy and the restructuring of global value chain in the European Union. And after that, we conclude with Lee Collon, who's a researcher and at the Centro Studi Industriali, who will present this paper about territorializing the impacts of megatrends as an application to EU regions. So what all these presentations have in common is our regional policy and adapt to shocks. We've seen this morning, also our commissioner, and sometimes it's a trade-off between the medium-term nature and the medium-term objectives of the policy, and sometimes the need to respond to sudden and unexpected shocks. So I think this is very interesting also for us. For all policymakers, for the UK Commission in particular, and for our Commission to hear what you have to say. So I look very much forward to it. In terms of timing, I've been told that since we have 4 speakers, we will have to try to stick to 15 minutes presentation. And I suggest we have a short round of questions at the end of each presentation, 5 minutes. And then if there are more, we stop it there and we resume at the end to the general round of questions for presentations. So without further ado, I leave the floor to Julia for her presentation.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm going to present work that at the very beginning of the next generation view. So we published this paper in January 2021. So we focus on next generation view, and this paper is part of my PhD thesis, and it's covered with Ricardo Crescenti from LSE and Marajua from Sabate. And it's important to say that so this work is developed within a next generation new context, but it's also valid for all digital and green projects that are going to be developed and during the next year to be the transition priorities. So, as we know, the EU is now facing the most dramatic crisis in its history, and the next generation EU is an ambitious, wide-ranging recovery package. And there are a lot of opportunities, but as we have heard this morning, we have a lot of complexity. And so these opportunities it's covered with significant risks. And if efforts of this plan prove to be untimely and ineffective, Euroscepticism would be the natural answer for dissatisfied EU citizens. So some questions are really important and pressing. Which difficulties might hamper or delay the implementation of next generation EU, or more generally, projects towards digitalization and greening? And how can we mitigate ex ante? So we develop an evidence-based approach to the selection and prioritization of this project for timely implementation. So we focus on a single, very specific driver of the possible success of next generation EU, that is the timeline of its implementation. So if timeline implementation is not a sufficient condition for the success of next generation EU as of this project, we know that the time delays will certainly be part of any assessment. And we know, based on practical and previous experience around with the cohesion policies, that timely implementation is a precondition for the success of the project. Sorry, doesn't work. Okay.
Points.
Okay. So due to the really the fact that cohesion policy is really similar in the governance structure and even in the objective to next generation EU, we look at cohesion policy as a laboratory to explore what type of actions and projects in principle might trigger the quickest response to COVID-19 crisis and to trigger this transition. So we leverage unique administrative data made available by the Cohesion portal on all individual projects funded during the last programming period in Italy. And we first identify among all funded projects those that more closely resemble the objective and function and nature of next generation EU. So those that are green and digital oriented. And then we uncover the characteristic of this project systematically associated with timely implementation. So we really based on practical experience. So we choose the case of Italy because we have this portal that combine more than 200 variables on project, and we focus on the timeline. So we have the start date, the expected and actual end date of every project. So we first select next generation EU, what we call next generation EU like style project, and we look at first at the documents, view commissions, and then we look to the project with a keyword search. And then we compute a simple measure of implementation delay and relative delay. So we divide into three categories of implementation of the project and our sample. So we have projects that are on time, like delay, and severe delay. So statistical evidence suggests that next generation EU style projects. So these projects that are the most innovative, the more innovative, and the more complex, as we heard this morning, are more likely and are more challenging, are more likely to accumulate delays. So in particular, as you can see, on average, almost 90% of projects end on time, and this is true for less than 70% projects. The digital and green one. And it's more important to look at the severe delay, and we can see that next generation EU style projects, the 20% ends with a severe delay compared to the all funded projects. Yeah, that's 3 times higher. So it's not a good news for the EU. So, in building our model, we based on the literature on cohesion policy, and we relate our implementation measure to 4 key dimensions. So the level involved in the governance of the project, the leadership, the project leadership, and the administrative complexity. So multiple traders involved or multiple stakeholders and beneficiaries. And then we look at the activation procedure, okay? So the procedure that we discussed a lot this morning about procedures, and we look even to this dimension. So our model checked the statistical association of these implementation indicators and project level implementation delay. So in our model, we control for 3 general project features. So the type of intervention, the sector of activity, the funding amount, and even the level of socioeconomic development of the region in which it's developed. And our results, as you can see, indicates characteristics to be replicated. So those that are associated with a negative coefficient. So our project and our characteristics that are more likely to to produce a timely implementation, and the characteristics to be avoided, as with a positive coefficient. Everything for to indicate what is necessary precondition or a possible bottlenecks potentially faced by next generation. So let's look to the results more deeply. First, we look at the governance level, and we see that projects funded and implemented under EU framework, so following more rigid rules and schemes and targets, are more likely to be completed on time compared to following national rules and funds. Secondly, at the national level, regional projects are more likely to end with a delay. There is a almost 40% probability that they end with a delay compared to projects developed within programs administered at the national level. So these results shed light on the fact that a governance coordinated that next generation new project will benefit from a governance coordinated by the EU and administered at the national level. And these results are convergent to the result of the leadership. So centralized design is the key. And in contrast, contrary to the expectations, we discussed about it this morning a lot. Projects led by individuals are also more likely to be completed on time. So compared to those that are developed by public authorities, public bodies, or private schemes. So engaging people, citizens in this project is a key feature for timely implementation and as an indicator of the possible success to the success of the next generation and green and digital project. So these results taken together calls for a strong national leadership, but that really work with the citizens, okay? That meets their needs and expectations. So, yeah, we said that these projects are complex. What about complexity? Okay, projects really complex. So projects developed between multiple territories or with multiple beneficiaries are more likely to be completed with delays. So simplification, simplicity is the key word even in this case, because timely processes are concentrated in a single contained sub-regional area. And finally, the activation procedures. Our results point out that the projects that are selected via negotiated standards are less likely to experience delays. So even if we have to go fast in time of its offenses in a next generation EU context and the context of EU cohesion policy, and it's really important in this period because we have to recover from the pandemic and trigger this transition, even for the energy crisis. The co-evolution and coordination is at the basis for a timely implementation. So it's not wasting time, but place-based policy can match a centralized design, and that's to be implemented for a timely implementation. So to conclude, this analysis suggests that timely implementation is achieved when national government work directly with citizens through participatory procedures. And we have some experiences even in the Italian context. And so involving relevant stakeholders is essential for a timely implementation. So simplicity is a key word, okay, as I told before, and a clear spatial target of the project leads to the avoidance of implementation delays and the engagement of citizens is really important and combined with the discussion and the meeting of their needs and expectations. Because discussing before with the stakeholders on the ground, the main priorities and of the funds can really reduce the implementation delay. So reduce even the complexity, maybe, and reduce maybe the mismatch between policy supply and demand. So we don't want to say that regional governments, okay, have to be excluded from the plan, but we propose a two-stage implementation approach. So where regional government can play a very important role in the recovery strategy and even in the transition after central government has started the process involving citizens and in a direct alliance with the relevant stakeholder on the ground. Always this, okay. Thank you. So comments and questions are welcome.
Thank you very much for the nice presentation. I only have a clarification question because the logic, the exercise was very clear. A question about your assessment about the leadership pillar. If you looked at cohesion policy projects, and generally the direct beneficiaries of these projects are either firms or public authorities or partnerships of firms or other intermediate bodies. Who are individuals here?
Okay.
What do you mean? But I mean, if you can also make some examples from projects that you've seen, who are these individuals and citizens that can currently lead the projects of this kind? Thank you.
Thanks, Julia. I've seen the paper, so I should remember that. But a question. So in the econometrics, you have both the full model and the model with the sequentially putting all our data, putting different variables, and you group them in the way you group them and you discover the result. But when you talk about the results, you give a sense that these are combining things. Centralized leadership with individual experts. This kind of combination of things within the categories that you create. And I take the point because there is the science and the significance doesn't seem to be the early part of the day versus the last part. So this seems to be quite independent, so you could say. But in a way, if you wanted to talk about combination of things, you would also have to have interactional terms between the variables of people. So basically, my question is not a question is, does it really, when you say you have to have this in combination with power, does it really matter? Each of the variables seem to be quite uncorrelated with the other one. So you can pick and choose depending on your political circumstances or your capacities and so forth. Am I wrong in the conclusion, or is there something more? And that's why you bundle them in combined accommodation.
Yeah, thank you very much for the interesting presentation. So my question was, are there any differences between sectors or funds? Say, I would assume that like infrastructure or even like green and digital infrastructure projects have more delays than, for example, educational ones, and maybe does it relate to funds as well?
Thank you for the question. So first, we have in this topic portal the variable for actuators of projects. Okay, and there we have different categories, and there are firms, ministers, municipalities, and then we have citizens like physical people, okay, persona fisica in Italian, and these are our people-led projects. I don't know if I clarify this point.
But wouldn't he also be a citizen or an individual person behind a firm actuator?
Yeah, but
No, that's my question. Probably has to do with the source data that you're using. It was not clear to me what it means to have one individual person leading a project. This is regardless of the organization you're in.
but this Tectonica category can be could be people that are now installing something for renewable energy are little projects, okay? For people and citizens, maybe for housing or agriculture or I don't know, digital transition for the connectivity and so on. So we look at this kind of projects and not firms, okay, because they don't have a structure.
For example, students are receiving a scholarship, you do not have as the soggetto autore, as the body implementing the policy, you do not have a company, the individual. Or if you have someone who has an individual company, like it's only the individual, like Daiva or an artisan, for example. So that's the type of people. So there is no company structure. Is the individual as such that is responsible for the implementation.
Thank you.
For the second question, we look through, okay, we add separately each variable, and then we look at the results of the effects of our variable simultaneously. Okay, but yes, we look, yeah, it's like maybe it's difficult to understand that, yeah, which is the difference between, okay, we look at centralized design, okay, and people-led activation, okay, but there are different categories in this database. So yeah, this is a centralized design. It's like programming by central government, and actuator are people. So we try to do some we control for some key features, but we haven't looked to the the interaction are not statistical significant, okay, in this case. So we decided to look at all the variables simultaneously. And lastly, okay, and lastly, the question about the funding and the different instruments, we control for that. Okay, and we didn't add it on our results because we use it as a control, to control for this feature and compare projects that are more closely to others, no? And so we don't really evaluate the aspects of different kind of projects.
We have the next speaker, Manu Miravile, who should be online, and he represents the impact of smart working, the regional impact of smart working with maybe just one.
Yeah, I'm aligned. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear. If you haven't had the chance to meet beforehand, I just remind you that you have 15 minutes for the presentation. And after that, there will be a short round of questions. Will be questions from the audience if there are any. And then if there are more, we will go back at the end of the presentation with the final round of questions. Mario, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So can you hear me? Because I have some issues with acoustic, but I hope that my presentation is now available. Can you see my presentation, or I have to share my screen?
You need to share your screen, please.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, just a moment. Okay, here I am. Sorry for this little problems, and sorry for not be with you there. Actually, I'm in London due to family issues, so sorry for that. Anyway, good evening, and thank you for having me in this thrilling session. My name is Mario Mirabile, and I'm the founder, executive vice president, and product manager of the non-profit association Softworking Lavorare dal Sud. Today, oh, sorry, some problem with. Okay. Today my presentation will focus on the case study of the Softworking Association and the integration to the smart specialization strategy.
We cannot hear you anymore.
Sorry?
Now we can hear you. So keep the microphone where it is now.
Oh, sorry, very bad acoustic. I can't hear you. So can you write down? Can you write down, please?
The feedback from the microphone.
Yeah, Mario, you can start. We can see the presentation.
Sorry, but very bad acoustic. Unfortunately, I can't hear you very well. I think it's a niche issue, I would say, because it's like environmental audio problem, I would say. Can you hear me?
Yes, everybody is except and I will with us, so he can start talking.
Yeah, Mario, please start, and if we cannot hear you, we'll let you know.
Okay, I will try to speak slowly. Sorry for that. I hope it can, I don't know, help it. Sorry.
So keep that in mind.
Okay. So basically, I was saying that my presentation today will focus on the case study of the Softworking Association and the integration to the smart specialization strategy that the association delivered basically to the national and regional levels. We'll start with some information related to the cohesion policy, but very briefly, and I will move to the smart specialization strategy, in particular in relation to the proposal made by the prepared by the Softworking Association, and I will conclude with presenting some results from the analysis of this case. And then I will even present some references I used to study this case. So basically, as you know, the origins of the cohesion policy lie in the grants made available some years ago now by the European Coal and Steel Community to help revitalize the depressed areas in depressed industrial areas, and the importance of cohesion policy rely on the fact that the mission is basically reducing territorial inequalities, which in turn reduce economic gain. This has always been the cohesion policy final goal, even though it constantly and relatively changes over time. And looking at the limits of the cohesion policy, maybe one of the most interesting in relation to the self-working project. I will tell you later more about this project. But one of the main issues, I would say, the main limit is the fact that the cohesion policy focus on brain drain rather than brain circulation with a more like a propositive approach, I would say. So the smart specialization strategy is a novel approach to design and implementation of innovation policies. And basically it's primarily about the policy process to identify and prioritize fields or areas where a cluster of activities should be formed, and to allow entrepreneurs to uncover the correct domains of future specializations according to Forey, David, and Hall. And but more, according to Crescenzi, De Blasio, and Jua, the S3 approach advocates the concentration of public resources in a set of clearly defined, predetermined priorities areas to be selected with a bottom-up approach based on a process of entrepreneurial discovery, involving all relevant local stakeholders who should work together to develop the most effective innovation strategy for their own future development. So basically now, smart specialization is a crucial element of both the EU 2020 Innovation Plan and the new EU cohesion policy. So influencing both the EU innovation and regional development objectives. Consequently, the smart specialization approach is currently being implemented across all EU countries and regions. And in this context, the question that I pose is, could remote working, new workplaces, and fight against the population be addressed by smart specialization approach to cohesion policy to find a new way to solve new and old problems? Very big question, I would say. And due to the fact that the European Commission is focusing on enhancing research and innovation capacity and the uptake of advanced technologies, reaping the benefits of digitization for citizens, companies, and governments, but also enhancing growth and competitiveness of small, medium, and enterprise, and developing skills for smart specialization, industrial transition, and entrepreneurship. Basically, in March 2020, a group of friends and colleagues created the Self-Working Laboratory Project and Association with the aim of mitigating the impacts of the pandemic and brain drain from southern Italy and marginalized areas of the country. The mission is creating a more sustainable world of remote work and reducing economic, social, integration, and territorial gaps through research, advocacy, and promoting a network of stakeholders aimed at creating the conditions of remote working from southern and northern areas of Italy. So the pandemic represented a turning point in this case. Indeed, since the implementation of the virus containment measures, companies have temporarily closed their traditional offices, and teleworking has become the main form of work for an incredible number of people. Consider, for example, that in Italy, we have gone from around 570,000 people working remotely in 2019 to around 8 million in 2020, according to the National Institute for the Analysis of Public Policies. This transformation, which is part of the fourth industrial revolution, has increased the awareness of the break of the unitary relationship between work and factory. So Next Generation EU, that the colleague Giulia Sonzogno presented before, smart specialization strategies and other European initiatives and policies, but also ECT advancement or labor changes, and have been supporting such a phenomenon. One of the main proposals of the Self-Working Association focuses precisely on reducing the mere work from home trend while stimulating the birth of what they call community apps, such as co-working spaces in inner and southern areas of Italy. This process cannot be a top-down one. Rather, the future of pandemic-induced remote working represents an outstanding opportunity to involve local institutions, firms, and citizens in community-participated governance processes. So according to the association, community hubs such as co-working spaces, libraries, museums are strong social infrastructure where remote workers, local communities, and other stakeholders interact and create new bonds and ideas, giving something back to the communities in terms of human capital. The South Working Association mapped and put in a network over 230 community apps in Italy, but sadly, just 8.7% of community apps are located in municipalities with less than 10,000 inhabitants. So they ask themselves a question: what can we do to improve and spread as many social infrastructures as possible to revitalize in areas and southern regions? So in this case, the S3 integration proposals is considered part of the answer, tackling the issues addressed by the European Commission. Indeed, after interviewing over 2,500 remote workers, the association focused on some of their priorities, such as technological mobilities and social infrastructures. The aim of the S3 integration is to develop a medium and long-term strategic vision in relation to the development of remote working with the national strategy, enable the regions to address their priorities, taking into account the necessity from territories, local communities, and workplace industry. So basically, their proposal focus on incentivizing the creation of community hubs in southern marginalized areas of Italy, and they consider that this proposal can have positive effects on the territory. And a non-exhaustive list includes repopulation of areas, new investments, launch of entrepreneurial activities, support of local communities with a start of consumption, valorization of forgotten or little known cultural and artistic heritage, attraction of private investment in the areas, and so forth and so on. So first of all, it is necessary to guarantee the workers the possibility of making the choice without negatively modifying the quality of their work, increasing productivity and bringing significant benefits to companies and organizations. So in this sense, there are many lines of action that can be identified in the integration proposed by the association. First of all, promotes the creation of communities of remote workers that can repopulate the areas most afflicted by the problem of youth immigration. Then, second, promote agreements between local authorities and companies based in the north and central of Italy, and between companies and other companies that favor the return of the worker to their place of origins. Third, promote the invitation to the strategy to enhance the territorial excellence and peculiarities with particular attention to the small municipalities of the inner areas. In this case, there are some specific case studies that can be used. For example, smart villages by the European Union, for example, which is being called the Borghi del Futuro in Italy, promoted by one of the ministry in Italy. So finally, as one of the results, these are like just some final considerations coming from the analysis of the integration through the smart specialization strategy proposed by the South Working Organization. But obviously, all types of regions are facing industrial transition challenges and have distinct needs. So some of the results coming from this case consider that in terms of institutional activities outputs, that the integration has been sent to all the technical teams working on the S3 at the regional level in Italy, that the integration has been delivered in the hands of the past Italian ministries of South and Territorial Cohesion, which who address the elaboration of the strategy. That advocacy activities have been conducted for cloud-based solutions, incentivizing a fairer a more accessible remote work organization, and a more open dialogue between citizens and public administrations and firms. And finally, that the full integration of the self-working proposal to the S3 has been totally integrated in Sicily, for example, and that obviously this, according to the association, implied a more place-based approach to the smart specialization strategy. So thank you for your attention. Obviously, I'm open to any comments. For comments are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mario, for an interesting presentation and for keeping well the time. I don't know if there are already questions at this stage, otherwise we can have them at the end. Then I suggest that we move to the next presentation because we are running a bit late.
Oh, sorry.
So there might be questions at the end, Mario, so please, if you could stay with us remotely, that would be appreciated.
Absolutely. Thank you. So sorry for being late.
It's all your fault. I mean, you needed some way to go into the structure before it was working. It's as smooth as the physically present.
Okay, so welcome everyone. My name is Riccardo Crescenzi, and I will present a group of papers and a stream of research that is trying to look at the link between the restructuring of global value chains and internationalization patterns and regional development policies. So I will, my presentation is organized around 3 key points. The first is like understanding how leveraging global value chains and internationalization in the EU regions need to go beyond the attraction of foreign direct investment. That has been the focus in the regions where some attention has been placed on the international dimension. Most of the focus of the public policy effort has gone into the attraction of foreign direct investment. What I will argue is that in particular, at this particular moment in time, globalization and links with global value chains is taking place throughout other forms of industrial restructuring go beyond the attraction of new foreign direct investment. And we discuss how public policies can deal with this profound reorganization of the process of global integration of new regions by taking into account the wide architecture to deal with the link between the local economies and the global reorganization of value chains. And then I will discuss at this time some additional evidence that can shape impactful policies in this area. So if we look at the jobs created in the European Union, in the EU regions by foreign direct investment. So here, like we have the count, the lot of the job count of jobs created through greenfield investment. So brand new like establishments by foreign firms that start their activities in the EU regions. Okay, we can see that fundamentally the inflows of new greenfield investments into the EU has not recovered since the financial crisis. Okay, so if we look at the big period of 2008, 2009, before 2008, 2009, we see that the decline has been ongoing during the crisis, but this has been followed by a period of fundamental stasis. Okay, the EU economy, in terms of attractiveness to foreign direct investment, has never fully recovered. And this is true fundamentally for if we look at foreign direct investment flows around the world. Okay, the financial crisis really marks a significant change in the patterns of global economic integration. So if we really want to understand how internationalization works in the EU and to what extent the EU regions can leverage the restructuring, the reorganization of global value chains to their advantage, we need to go beyond simple the analysis of greenfield investments that has dominated an important part of the policies following the debate so far. If we expand the lens of our analysis and look beyond greenfield investment and bring into the picture expansion. So we look not only at greenfield investments, but we also look at the expansion, the job creation by existing foreign firms. So that the expansion of existing subsidiaries of foreign firms in the regions, we see it's like a different trend. So we see that the decline following the financial crisis is visible, but the recovery has been somewhat more dynamic. Okay, so we see some dynamism there in terms of expansion of existing activities. So most of the new investments, the new capital, the new dynamism that comes from foreign activities in the region in terms of job creation has been linked with the expansion of existing activities at least until 2016, 2017. And then the reduction of existing activity has anticipated the decline, the crisis, so the COVID-19 crisis. So we can see how some of the patterns, when we say that some of the fundamental dynamics predate the COVID-19 pandemic, the pandemic has mostly accelerated the existing trends, we do find confirmation of this. Then, if we look at divestment, so if we go and look at the extent to which the additional element, so how and to what extent foreign firms are divesting their activities in the EU regions. So that's the industrial crisis, when a foreign firm closes a subsidiary. Okay, that's the job. Here we count the jobs, not the jobs created, but the jobs divested, the jobs destroyed by the divestment of foreign activities in the EU region. And here we can see very clearly how this coincides with the moments of crisis, with the shock that we can see how the divestment goes up already before the pandemic, but then peaks in 2020. But we see that there's quite a lot of dynamism before, in between the two crises. So if we really want to have a comprehensive and deep understanding of the process of internationalization and job creation in the regions, we need to go beyond the simple generation of the new greenfield investments and understand how foreign firms expand their activities in the EU regions and how they divest, how they cancel or restructure or reduce their exposure in foreign markets. And I mean, we have to say that we have to highlight that this is particularly important if you look at the key industries that form the European value chain. So when we look at these trends, by looking at the characteristics of the investing companies, we see that the trend is this strong interlink between expansions and divestment is particularly important when it comes to capital-intensive industries. And also the pattern, so by simply looking at foreign direct investments, we really only looking at greenfield investments, we miss also an important part of the story that has to do with less developed regions. In less developed regions, divestment is a very important part of the story, particularly if you look at the COVID-19 crisis. You see that the decline of the new greenfield investment has been accompanied by a reduction in the expansion of existing activities and a significant increase that predates the COVID-19 crisis in terms of industrial crisis, and these make headlines in many of our member states. So this is like to tell that the traditional outcome variable in much of the literature, new greenfield FDI, only tells a partial story when we look at the internationalization of the regions. So the fundamental question that I would like to discuss with you today is really how can regional policies deal with these changing patterns of internationalization? How can regional policies leverage this pattern to their advantage of local communities? How can they take advantage of the restructuring or the creation of European value chains to generate economic development in less developed regions? So when we think about this problem, this is fundamentally about understanding how these activities are organized along by global value chains, how and to what extent, and this is the focus of a book that we have just published that you will find in your conference bank who have access to the online version of the book. Paper versions didn't make it here, a proof of how global value chain sometimes fail to work. And And so we understand global value chains, we need to understand the strategic actors, how multinational firms orchestrate activities in global value chains, and most importantly, how they touch down through inward and outward investments, how they touch down in the regions, and how foreign subsidiaries or companies controlled by multinational firms through the value chain then develop their linkages with the wider local economy and with other regions. So we need to understand it in terms of like our diagnosis and understand that these linkages are established not only through new greenfield investment, but also through the expansion of existing activities and through the divestment when a certain link in the chain is not functional anymore to the overarching economy of the chain. So when we think about like the public policy tools that we have available to manage this connectivity from within the regions, we can think about two key tools that can take different shapes, definitely take different shapes in different regions and in different member states that are regional investment promotion agencies. So dedicated bodies in the regions that can be autonomous agencies or can be dedicated units within, for example, the regional government that deal with the engagement with foreign investors, with the value chain, and make sure that these contacts actually happen. So what we try to do in recent research with Maranjua and Marco Di Cataldo is to try and understand how and to what extent regions can actually make this happen. How and to what extent regions that have regional investment promotion agencies active in their territory and targeting a particular sector of activity, how and to what extent these agencies are successful in attracting more investment, creating more of those linkages that would otherwise have happened without the agency. And this is what we show here in this chart, where we look at, in particular, less developed regions of Europe. Okay, this is based on the first ever survey, census of all regional investment promotion agencies in the EU region. Okay, so that's the first time that investment promotion agencies at the subnational level are analyzed in systematic manner. Most of the literature, of the existing literature on the topic is probably on the national level only. So what we do is basically compare a synthetic region that doesn't have the agency here and the region that has the agency before the agency is established or before the agency starts targeting a particular sector. So before these particular organizations start working in dealing with foreign investors, and we see after the agency start working, what happens in terms of attraction of new investments to the region that is treated, that has the agency, in comparison with the region of the sector that is not supported by the agency. So what we want is that the two are identical before this happens, that we create basically a statistical twin. So we want that the twins are identical before one received the treatment, received the vaccine, and the other doesn't, and we want to see what happens after they receive the medication. And what we do see is that the region that has the agency targeting a particular sector is attracting significantly more investment than the region that doesn't. And if we do the math, what we see is that regional investment promotion agencies in Europe are effective in attracting knowledge-intensive investment, so not the one that you usually find in less developed regions, by a ratio of 71%. So they attract 71% more investment that would have otherwise landed in those regions without agency. So if this is like reassuring, no? Because this tells us that there is something that regions can do in order to attract, to link with the value chain. However, this is only part of the story. Because what we also need, we don't want to create cathedrals in the desert. We don't want to create establishment of foreign firms that exist in isolation vis-a-vis the rest of the economy. So what we need is to make sure that we create linkages, that the foreign investor is linked, is part of the local economy, is embedded into the host economy, the host regional economy. So we need to make sure that the attraction is matched with something else, the architecture that I mentioned before. And this has to do with the activities that make sure that existing investments expand their activities, so they are really embedded, they are functional to the local environment, and expand their activities and that they do not divest, that they remain part of the region, that they don't fly away when the wind changes. And this is something we try to address in more research, and we have implemented the Marco Di Cataldo, Gail Marachua, and Juan Valls Villanova, and where we try to see like what happens to regions that have and don't have agencies, but looking at expansion, so the new jobs being created by the foreign subsidiaries of foreign firms. And what we see here is similarly, the regions that have an active regional investment promotion agency targeting a particular sector are also better in retaining and facilitating the expansion of existing investments. The proxy that something is happening. We say they act as plumbers of the local ecosystem. They build the ecosystem so they don't attract foreign firms by advertising the region on the London underground. What they do is working with investors on the ground to make it happen for them, make the foreign investor click into the local economy. And so they are effective in facilitating expansion as well as in preventing divestment. But here, when it comes to divestment, that's why I mentioned that's a matter of having a wider architecture. When it comes to preventing divestment, national investment promotion agencies play a role. Because here, the story is really dealing with major industrial restructuring. And sometimes assets that are available locally are not enough. What you really need to bring is bring credit, bring investors, bring counterparts that can complement the existing foreign activity. And so you need a wider scale of activity that is ideal, the national one. So here, like we see that there is a more like sophisticated architecture that needs also both for coordination, something Julia was mentioning before, the coordination between the local and the national level. So regions cannot make it alone. They really need a wider national framework that is coordinated in order to deal with the complexity of the restructuring of European global management. So if we look at the evidence, and we'll conclude, if we like carefully look at how these investments work in the local economies, we can really see like a significant indications on how some of the key misconceptions that have driven public policies in the area can be, if you want, overturned by an evidence-based approach. And the research that we have produced in this area that is summarized in the book, is presented in accessible language in the book, for example, also tells the EU regional policy that that we need like an active strategies to make sure that the embeddedness of foreign investment happens, that we really build the ecosystem. It doesn't happen automatically. The fundamental misunderstanding is that if I attract a large investor, if I attract Intel, if I attract Google to the local economy, even that it is big, it will spill a lot into the local economy. Like attracting a big pot of water, there is a lot of water, a lot of knowledge will spill into the regional economy. This is not the case. Big companies are also much better at retaining their knowledge, at managing their knowledge assets, and making sure that they spill only what is strictly necessary for them to learn from their host environment. So we really need, like, we use evidence, we can guide public policies in this interaction in the local and the global level. Sometimes are not the big actors that are the most suitable targets to generate local impacts. We really need to aim for more intermediate companies, and evidence can help us understand what these companies are and how to engage with them successfully at the local level. Also, another important misconception, and then I will conclude, it has to do with greenfield investment. I mentioned a lot of the generation of investments, but very often policymakers are against acquisitions, for example, about foreign firms buying domestic companies. And this is also a very dangerous misconception, because an acquisition can be a very relevant mode of entry to facilitate this link between the local and the global economy. And we have shown in our research that these type of decisions are fundamentally sensitive to the local and regional institutional quality. So it's very important that there is a lot that regions can do in terms of attracting the right investing companies and make them do the right choice when it comes to local investments. So the general take-home message is that, like, we cannot think about recovering from COVID-19, we cannot think about regional development without taking into account global value chains and quality investments. We really need to bring internationalization to the mainstream discourse about cohesion policy. And these dealing with global value chains calls for a new generation of what we call in the book a global value chain sensitive regional policies. So regional policies that take into account the GDC dimension, that take into account the fact that the regions are all interconnected. And this goes beyond policies for internationalization alone. Thinking GDC sensitive means that when you plan your infrastructure, you also think about what is your position in global value chains and what your position will be in 50 years from now. Deciding that a particular port or a particular model is a priority or not should also take into account the mobility of goods, where a particular country, a particular region will be in international trade and foreign investment flows. So thinking GDC really means reflecting on all strategic choices done at the regional level, taking into account that not everything that happens at the local level is local, that on the contrary, what happens on the ground is crucially interconnected with what happens globally. And that the restructuring of global value chains and the formation of and the strengthening of European value chain is an incredible opportunity for the region in the EU and in the UK. The ideas that I mentioned are like summarized in a much better and comprehensive manner in the book. You have access to the book, the full text online to the code that is provided in your conference plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ricardo, for this super interesting presentation. Also, thank you for keeping very well. You know this because I forgot, but you were absolutely on time. I'm sure there are a lot of questions here. Who wants to start? Please.
Thank you very much. Very interesting analysis and also some good ideas. But I want to ask how many other regional development promotion agencies do you work? Because I didn't get a few.
Well, I mean, it very much depends on the country. Oh, sorry, yeah. It very much depends on the country. Some countries have regional investment promotion agencies in all their regions. So Poland has as many regions as regional investment promotion agency. Italy, more or less the same. France, very similar. Germany, the same. Other countries like Greece have no regional investment promotion agencies. So the reason why the European piece is very interesting, also beyond Europe, is because within the EU you can find a lot of different types of institutional arrangements, and in the paper we don't. It depends on like the sample that you take. Well, I mean, in the paper, what we do is we cover all of the EU for the national, and then when we go down to the regional analysis, we focus on a subset of countries that have regional investment promotion agencies. Right? So yeah, but it very much depends on the country. Like Spain, for example, has many provinces. There are regional investment promotion agencies. So it depends on the level. In the UK, you have a lot because they are like defined from the bottom up through local enterprise partnerships, for example. So it's a very like complex architecture that also offers a lot of variability within the same integrated market by the use of there are no compounding factors in terms of having different trade rules or having different arrangements. So it's a very nice model.
Ricardo, there's a question. This is very important. So I like how the discussion about nationals and how they're attracted and how we links to a little to the record was not told about FBI spillovers. And that literature has gone last time I left when I did some work on the role of cultural opportunity and institutional opportunity in multiplying the spillovers, creating this kind of reducing or opening leakages from the nationals. But the leakage in general, I think, highlight a lot of things, both in terms of technology content, so the distance with the local economy, absorb the capacity application, also the scale, so typically 5 and handshake scale, so you need to have a big enough scale of investment in order to spill out, but if it's too big, talking about the points about the targets, then there's not spillovers, spillovers go down. So I wonder whether there is, I mean, in your work, in different parts of your systematic review of this evidence that you can then test a bit more with a test kind of way with your data. So that was the big question. A smaller technical question. So your treatment, the episode is this kind of the gear, the strategy, so the promotion is versus strategy. But then of course, what anybody means by strategy could be different. And I wonder if, like from the data that you're using, how confident we are that these are exogenous, because you need the event to be completely exogenous, so is it that they decide one day I will do a strategy and then FBI goes up, or is it that they know that it's been, for example, Microsoft is talking to some local firms, and then with a bit of political pressure we develop a strategy, next year Microsoft comes, but they were coming anyway. So how exogenous is it, and how big the strategy is?
So on the FBI spillover literature, of course, the contribution that we made is linked with looking at FBI spillover not as part of standalone decisions or as macroeconomic flows, but as part of the decision of organizing global value chain. And the contribution that the misconception that I mentioned before looks not at the scale of the investment, but at the nature of the investor. So it's not how big the investment is, but it's how big, in terms of knowledge in that case, the investing companies are linking the strategic management literature with the spillover literature and say, okay, different types of companies, irrespective of the size of the investment, we put different strategies when they enter the local company. But here, like the question that we try to address is, if you want, different. So the issue is, and we have not done this lower question yet, because what I mentioned is, okay, to what extent we can attract fresh investments, like new investment, and the proxy for like being successful in embedding the investment is I facilitate the expansion of existing point firms. So the problem there is not information asymmetries, do I go to the region or not, and the agents help me. Information asymmetries are out of the picture because the investor is already there. How and what extent I can convince them to do new things in the region. But it's not spillover yet. The question of spillover is really how to what extent there are impacts on other companies. And the question that we need to address here is how to what extent investments that arrive organically into the region without the support of an investment promotion agency have different effects. These are the investments that are attractive to the region by the agencies that come under the influence of public policy. That's the type of question we are working on and we are trying to address, because they tell us how to what extent public policy can add value to the generation of spillovers in the local economy. So it's like going in stage, looking at all functions, taking away different compounding factors like information asymmetries, for example, attraction versus expansion, and then looking into spillovers that for the forward, domestic and foreign firms, etc. In this particular like more public policy oriented research. But in the book, we document some of the debates in this wider literature to the benefit of policy needs. Okay, just let me have 1 minute because we're running a bit late. Okay, and maybe we can discuss all this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ricardo. Just to give enough time. There's also a book included. On the way back, you can read it and over you can make more questions. But I want to give at least 15 minutes to Luis Cornell present this paper. And after that, we'll have a final round of questions and then we can run it.
Sorry. So hello, my name is Luis Cornell. I work at the Center for Industrial Studies in Milan, Italy. I'm very glad to be here today with all of you and to present you something that is actually not directly related to crisis. So unlike my colleagues, I hope that you will not be tricked by the title of the session, but there is some connection, and I'm very interesting as well, because I will tell you about the territorial impacts of megatrends. So to tell you a little bit the context of this study, my company was involved in work for the European Commission on megatrends and their impacts at EU level. And since we are also very active in regional development and interested in that sort of us, We decided to try to expand this type of analysis and to see whether it could be applied to the regional level as well. So we made a working paper on that, where we developed a methodology for this approach, and I'd like to show you basically the main step and the kind of results we can obtain from that. So first of all, I will do the boring part of the definition so that we make sure that we all talk about the same thing. Because megatrends can be described in very different ways. I will give the traditional, let's say, definition of NASBITS in the 80s. We define megatrends as large-scale social, economic, political, or even environmental that changes, but are slow to form, but continue relentlessly over several economic cycles. So basically, it's a very broad definition, and it can encapsulate very different types of trends. People disagree a lot about the actual list, but you find things like automation, the digital transition, the green transition, all these kind of very broad trends that are very relevant there. But basically, they all have a set of similar characteristics. Mainly they are long term, so they're typically at least 20-30 years from now. Very ubiquitous, so that means that there are effects not only on single sector or on part of society. They are global, so they're not relevant only for a country or a region, but at global level. And they're robust, so it's where we see the link with crisis that my colleague mentioned, because basically these type of trends are resilient in the sense that even when they face setbacks, they tend to continue over time. So what about this special dimension of that? Basically, what we know from the existing literature on megatrends is that it's clear that different trends will have different special effects, but different regions will not be affected in the same way. However, most of the literature on megatrends, there are literature in the academia, but a lot of great literature like international organization, substances. This type of literature is mostly space blind, so it doesn't explore that much the issue. So there are some patterns, mostly by the OECD, exploring what drive this kind of analysis at the local level. So we wanted to go on and develop the literature on the basis, which is especially relevant in the EU, since there are some important disparities across the different regions of this continent, and of course there are also dedicated policies about creating policy products. So that was the rationale basically for the study, which I mentioned a little previously, and the goal would be to identify the most and the least affected regions by different megatrends for different types of impacts. And the idea was also to develop a framework that would be flexible enough so we could apply it later to other types of analysis or types of megatrends, with the idea to make this approach a little bit evolve. And based on this methodology that we developed in the paper, we tested it for a sample of 3 megatrends and 3 types of different impacts at the EU level on those 2 regions, so that kind of the actual regional dimension. So I will tell you a little bit about this framework, because the original framework is quite a complex articulation of different types of analysis. So I hope I will make it as clear as possible in this short amount of time. But basically, we take in terms of impacts, we define impacts as the relative change as compared to today's situation. So we're not able with this type of approach to give you like a precise number of job losses or these kind of things, but we're more likely to give you an approximation of the qualitative type of impacts regarding whether the region was actually transformed a lot or not compared to today. And it's a methodology that relies on mixed methods. So there is a qualitative part, which is about designing 4-state scenarios and trying to understand how these scenarios related to the megatrends affect different sectors. And then we go on to quantify this impact at the sectoral level, still with a qualitative approach. And then we use that, we convert the qualitative scale to numeric values, and we use sectoral employment data to actually do the territorial step, or the territorialization of the impacts. So this approach has obviously both advantages and limits. It's relatively flexible. It's quite labor intensive because you have to design actually good scenarios and well, a lot of evidence to make them coherent. But then it can be expanded for different megatrends for different types of impacts and so forth. And it has limits obviously as well. There is always a lot of subjectivity in these kind of scenarios, even where they're done as best as possible. And we are using sectoral data, so it's also it may also miss some transformations. So we have to keep that in mind in the analysis as well. So for the test of this approach, we selected 3 different megatrends which are listed here. So we have digital and new production technologies, sustainable economic transition, and urban world and smart mobility, which I will tell you a little bit more about the context later. And in terms of impacts, we studied business organization, which is basically how companies are internally organized in their processes. Market changes, which is basically what kind of products and services companies have to offer. And employment, which is basically job creation processes. Same. So just to give you the different steps. So as I mentioned, the first step of the approach is to develop foresight scenarios for the different megatrends. So foresight scenarios are basically not a prediction of the future, which you cannot do, but there are conceptual futures where we highlight some assumptions, some hypotheses, and what consequence it may have in the future. And of course, as you see, there is a lot of literature on this type of scenarios. For instance, we can think of the IPCC, climate change, or a lot of this type of work. And basically, it can be selected based on what is most credible, what is the most the most beneficial, what is the most risky. So for this test, we've decided to get basically the most credible scenario based on the literature, what goes on more common at least in the existing literature. And this type of scenario can be done by literature review and depth survey to reduce the expertise kind of assessment. So just to give you an example of what it may look like, it's a summary of the scenarios for the 3 megatrends I mentioned. So I will not go obviously through all the details, but you can see the core assumptions and what might be the results by 2050, which is the end year that we selected. So just to give you a sense of the substance of the 3 scenarios, for digital and production technologies, it's a quite ambitious scenario of technological developments where basically companies adapt quite quickly to digital transformation, develop automation strategies quite quickly, and we are not backlash from the public or the regulation sector regarding that. For the sustainable transition, it's quite a middle of the road scenario where we do not see the most radical transformation to a possible future, but it's not business as usual either. It's basically continuation of existing policies, like in the IPCC scenarios, more or less. And the last one is the urban suburban and smart mobility, where we basically see quite a continuous process of concentration of activity in cities and the development of different mobility solutions, such as all the things about electric autonomous vehicles, but also public transportation. Then, when we have the different scenarios, what is often bundled with the scenarios is an assessment of impacts. And a lot of time we have actually insight from the literature on the sectors that will be the most or the least affected. So the next step of the scenario is a qualitative assessment of this impact. We usually use 5 probability scale ranging from marginal to major impacts. So it's we do not have the direction of change, as I mentioned, but rather to what extent the situation will change. And we can apply this to the different sector and the different megatrends that impacts. So just to make you see what it looks like, we have this basically this type of table at the end where it's for digital and reproduction technology here. We have basically sectors in line Then in columns, you have the different type of impacts, and you have the assessment based on these scenarios we developed basically. So then there is the quantification step based on this work. It's relatively simple. Basically, we attribute a numeric score to each level of the qualitative scale of impacts, so that it ranges from 0 to 100. And then based on that, as we have performance data sectoral level in different regions, we can actually weight these scores based on the number of people employed in the different industries. So obviously, there are some needs to this approach, but it's readily available and should give us at least a rough approximation of the type of change a region might face in the future from this. So this is basically the kind of results we may obtain based on this methodology. So I will not go through all of them, obviously, since we're low on time, but you can see basically a graph for each type of impacts, and then you have different colors for the different megatrends. Red is digital production, green is sustainable economic position, and blue is mobility and urban issues. And basically, you see the distributional score for each. It's basically the next two regions are covered here, and you see the distribution of the score. And on the right, you see the correlation between regional impact score for the different regions, different types of impact, different megatrends. But yeah, I will not spend too much on that. It's better to do maps, so it's more visible. So this is an example of the type of map we get. So it's only for the type of impacts of business organization. So basically, what extent we expect companies to have to change their internal process due to the megatrends. And you see, we are digitizing production technologies at the top left, sustainable economic position, and urban work. And the more blue, the less type of transformation we expect, and the red, it's the opposite direction. So you can see that basically we expect different megatrends to have different types of impacts at the regional level, at least for that type of impact. It obviously depends on the scenario we selected, because we have an ambitious scenario, for example, digital production technology, and for sustainable economic condition, we have a more conservative assumption, but if you change this type of scenario, you get different results, basically. But you also get the regional patterns, which are also interesting. For instance, you can see that for some megatrends, the impacts are more homogeneous for different regions, while for some others, you can see patterns in terms of level of development, in terms of urbanization, in terms of urban versus rural regions, so you can see all these type of. And in particular, an interesting element for these results is that we do not see always a clear link between level of development, regions, and impact we might expect. So on this graph, you have in the x-axis the GDP per capita in perfectly colored varieties, sorry. And on the y-axis, you have the impact score at the regional level for different megatrends and different types of impacts. And as you can see, in some cases, you have like an increasing relationship, increasing one or up one. So it keeps us in mind that transformation is not about the current level of development, but there are other factors at play. So I think it calls also for more refined analysis, taking into account the regional context for this kind of transformation. And I'm done here. We can discuss the policy implication together if you want. So thank you very much for your attention, and I will be glad to exchange.
Thank you very much. Time for one or two quick questions. I see this.
Yes, so I like to see on your brain basically.
And we like that you're here.
Thank you very much. Thanks, it's very interesting, a lot of work about that. I have a question which is not like a critical stage, but is there any discussion in all these kind of futures and future megatrends analysis about 90 and uncertainty, and really the risks that we're not aware of, that we cannot anticipate. So, for example, I can think climate change or whatever can deal, I don't know, if climate change,
Yeah.
earthquakes,
Typically,
or you know, even political depopulation in Bulgaria leads to the rise of the far right, for example.
Yeah.
Any sort of viewpoint. So is there a discussion about that? Because otherwise you're just taking, sectoral propositions, and of course the projections are valid, but the valid if there's no viewpoint, if there's no discussion. Yeah.
Yes, I think it's really a tool for discussion. It's not like, it's not scientific proof, but sure it's not a clear prediction of the future, but I think it's also helpful to identify such risks to see, for instance, whether we expect some catastrophic climate change. It may affect us at this stage, for this type of sector, for this type of impacts, and that we may have a discussion on that basis, I would say. So yes, I think it's about trying to foresee more possible in clear way this type of impacts. But for that you need different tools, and this can be part of the answer, but not everything.
Very good question. I really like it, and you had maps as well. I said it before that I like maps. So if I understood correctly, your methodology, which is simple, but it's actually very effective because you can get at least some nice pictures of what might happen. You look at the effect on each sector, but you don't really look at any kind of spillovers between sectors, correct?
Exactly.
So in a sense, would it be correct to say that your results are the minimum and the effect could be even higher than what you are forecasting?
Yes, indeed. We only look at sectors, but with no interactions, so it's one of the limits, obviously. I would probably not say it's necessarily below impact, because we could imagine that impacts could cancel out each other in some sectors, and obviously the sectoral composition can also change over time. We may have some kind of effect like that. So it's definitely one of the limits, and I would not say necessarily it's possible, but yeah.
So thank you very much. If you're interested in the impact at the regional level of climate change, there will be a very interesting presentation by our colleague Joachim Maes. I think either in the afternoon tomorrow, where you can extrapolate together with the jurors on what the impacts are. It's very nice, Pat, I promise. But now I want to thank very much all the colleagues and the hosts that enriched this discussion today. So I'll leave a round of applause for all of you.